Welcome to a football show, Thursday edition at a normal time slot. Imagine that. Nick Suss of the Tennessean, Pay for Good Journalism. My name is Braden Gall, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. Good morning, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing pretty okay.
Pretty okay?
Okay to like, if 50 is okay, maybe like 48, but like close enough to okay that it's not worth like digging into.
Oh, we've got a full hour here, Nick. We could discuss what's going on in your life if you want. Joe, good to see you. Yo, he says. Retra says, how many draft picks do you think we end up making on draft nights? Plural, 9 picks. Would love to trade up. I've got a thing I've been practicing here, and I'll float that a little bit later on in the show, Nick, to get your opinion on that. Today on the show, I wanted to take a pause. We wanted to take a pause from all the roster movement, all the things that have happened. There's a break in the action here. We're back into refocusing on the draft after sort of the initial big wave of free agency. We analyzed all the free agent decisions. We have the uniform reveal done. We know the stadium's coming, et cetera, all that stuff. By the way, and I said this on Monday's show, great job by you and Stillman. I thought really great, interesting, thoughtful conversation in the first 20 minutes of that show about the uniforms and what it means to people and what the brand is trying to do. So we're going to take that and kind of spin it forward to another conversation, which is, are we buying into what this team is doing broadly? And ultimately what that means is, can this team get good quickly? Can they contend? Are we into a new era of Titans football? Is it official, right? Can we kind of put the stuff, that the mistakes of the past behind us? Are we ready to move forward? We'll do all of that. Then a really good conversation between you and Stillman in the middle of that show, and then it devolved at the end when you guys were just arguing. Coach Wills, what's up? Good to see you. Peter, backwards hat. Yeah, look, I got my East Nashville Beer Works hat on, so make sure you check out.
We'll get to this at the end of the show, but my dad tried to pick a fight with me over the weekend about how old is too old to wear your hat backwards, and I think you have to make that decision as somebody who is wearing the backwards hat and the older gentleman on the call right now. What's the day that you give up wearing the hat backwards, right?
The fact that you called me a gentleman adds 5 years to your life. Just
okay, for sure. Still, if you're adding 5 years, I still haven't caught up to you. You're still the arbiter here.
True. There's no question about that. But in one sentence, you added 5 years to your life. Morning, gents. Good to see you, Daniel, as well. Titans eras are defined by the running back. Joe, hold that thought. Belvis, Duffelfield, 200. Let's F and go, guys. Cam and Love to the rescue. There we go. At least it's not to the side. Caribbean talking about the hat there. No one of any age should wear a hat backwards. Oh, strong take from Scott.
Scott just hating on 3-year-olds right now. Man, how dare they like wearing their hats back?
And then Peter with an excellent reference. If you know, you know. Denim on denim. Really cool guy.
Classic RCG over here.
Really cool guy. Look, I'm 43, and I will say that the ratio of forward hats to backwards hats is changing rapidly. I was an exclusive Ken Griffey Jr. guy for decades because of Ken Griffey Jr. Basically for, I don't know, probably till at least 35 years old. And then it started switching. I started wearing forward hats again. And it's like, I'm a little bit more like 70-30 forward backwards now, maybe even more than that. And that's a new thing for me. So,
yeah, I will say the main reason I wear them backwards, honestly, is because my hair is too big. And if I wear my hat forward, it'll push the hair down over my eyes.
Yeah.
And so I'm wearing a hat because my hair is unruly, and I'm wearing my hat backwards because my hair is unruly. Maybe the problem is my hair, but don't say that.
No, your problems. Yeah, you can't complain about your hair to a guy who's been losing his hair for 15 years. Now, I still have it technically, but it's there, and I'm not going to spend any money on chemicals. I refuse to do it. And I'm exclusively wearing this hat to promote our partner, East Nashville Beer Works.
Talk about them.
So East Nashville Beer Works, which you can buy at Sinkers Beverages. And here's the deal, guys. The draft party information is almost done. We are almost done with all of the details. I'm really excited about it. And as usual, Sinkers, once again, is going to outdo itself. And we're going to have a really awesome setup for multiple evenings for the NFL draft on April 23rd on Thursday evening. We will be at ML Rose private party in the back patio in Inglewood in East Nashville. Tickets will be reasonable, as we always do for Thursday night. We're going to have some giveaways. We're going to have a contest around who can pick the top 10 teams. This is our 5th annual charity event. Every penny of this will go to the Our Kids Foundation here in Middle Tennessee, helping to take care of sexually abused children. It is the gold standard of organizations and clinics, and we've donated over $10,000 to this organization over the last few years. This will be our 5th year doing this, and really, really excited about it. Tickets will be on sale on Monday. We will have all of the information, the details, and the links up on Monday's show. So Paul and I will sort of turn those links live for you guys on Monday. But Thursday night's going to be at ML Rose. Going to be 6:30. Start time at 7. We're going to all be there and hanging out. We might have some special guests. We're going to have some giveaways. We're going to have open bar, open food, all you can eat, all you can drink as usual. That's going to be a ton of fun. And then Saturday night, last year we had a reporter Q&A panel live, off the record kind of podcast analog. We've even upped that from now. We're going to have a bourbon tasting. We're going to have special guests. We're going to have a silent auction with some Titans items. And we may even have some new logos for you guys and some gift bags to give away. So some really cool stuff. Very excited about it. The food's going to be great. The locations are fun. The drinks are going to be great. And the community, Nick. The community is always the best part. Seeing all of you guys in person, spending time with you is just spectacular. Shout out to everybody who came out to Yazoo last night to watch Nashville beat Messi in the rain in Miami in advance in the CONCACAF Champions Cup or whatever it's called, the CCC. But speaking of being in community, we're big on local tap rooms and Sinkers Beverages as a local business. Make sure you check out Yazoo Brewing Company. We had probably 50, 60 people there watching that match last night. So it was so much fun. Always great to be in community. So I hope to see a lot of you guys out at the draft party Thursday and Saturday night. Saturday night's going to be a post-mortem with a bunch of really important folks with big brains like Nick Suss. So
like not including, my brain is not that big, but people like me with big brains very much will be there.
I meant to ask, will this be a World Cup pod? Well, we have one of those. It's called Club and Country, covering Nashville SC soccer, but we will be covering all of the World Cup on that feed as well. And yes, we'll probably mention it over here as well. If I was in America, I would come. Sounds fun. Thank you, Caribbean. I got the poofy hair after drying from the shower. Nate, I don't know if that comment was necessary, but I appreciate that.
I feel that.
I wish I knew what that was like these days. No hat should have a flat brim. All be made like Quint's hat in Jaws. Hang on. That's why I wear this.
That's the opposite of Quint's hat.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. This is the flat brim. But it's got a big E on it for East Nashville Beer Works. So, all right. Quickly, reaction to what was said yesterday. Wandale Robinson, John Franklin Myers, Cordell Flott, Alante Taylor were available to the press.
Tremaine Johnson as well.
Johnson, digitally available to the press through Zoom. It was a little herky-jerky, but it worked. And I'm going to start with Wandale because the other ones are all on defense. My takeaway from Wandale Robinson, first of all, I really liked him coming out of college. I had concerns about his size. My co-host at the time, Zach, was very anti-Wandale Robinson on this show. I think we've all kind of come around on him. They can get out after 2 years of this contract, so it's not super expensive. He was less in the slot last year than I think people realize. We don't have to get into exactly what he brings to the offense. We have 5 months for that. But my observation, Nick, and I don't know, you know me, I like the psychology of press conferences and communication and interpersonal reactions. And it's not a huge deal that Cam jumped on with us and kind of made it and had a joking question. Hey, what's it going to be like to play with me? Basically to one of his new receivers. But Wandale's answer, also not breaking news here, but Wandale's answer was essentially, I can't wait. I believe in him. And the thing that you notice with Cam Ward, no matter who it is, coach, general manager, players, teammates, that there is an instant belief in him. People believe in him. And there's not really anything yet on the field to say that that's what people should do. But when you get around him, you believe in him. And again, this is not earth-shattering stuff. This is not rocket science. But Wandale just saying he has an immediate confidence in Cam Ward. So much so that he kind of threw his other quarterbacks under the bus a little bit. I've never had a guy like that back there before. So, he talked about Brian Daboll's system and the intensity and the creativity and the third downs. And he talked about a lot of other stuff. But I kind of wanted to just point out, Wandale, like everyone else, instantly confident and a believer in Cam Ward.
Yeah, I wrote this last April, so sorry that I'm reusing 11-month-old material. But I talked to a lot of people about meeting Cam Ward about dude's transferred twice, dude's been up and down throughout his college career. What's it like when he comes in a room instantly? And the prevailing answer was there's no point where Cam Ward feels like the underdog. There's no point where he has to prove something. He walks in and it's like, you know, that trope in movies where a bunch of people will be sitting around and they're like, oh, but the new guy's not going to be any good. He's just the new guy. And then somebody steps out of a limo and they like pull their sunglasses down and they're cool and their hair's waving in the wind. That's Cam the second he walks into any room for the first time.
Is it Sunshine and Remember the Titans? Like where
yeah. Like people see him and they're like
all quarter mile.
Yeah. Like that song starts playing, it's just who's that lady? But for a guy, it's that thing that's gonna happen. And people believe in him. People see Cam Ward and they're like, yeah, that guy. Yeah. Like I might have told this story on the show before, but I think a lot about a conversation I had with Cam's center from Incarnate Word, where it's his first or second game at Incarnate Word, and they're running a quarterback sneak on 4th and 1, and there's a nose guard lined up right over the center. And Cam looks at the nose guard and says, this is a quarterback sneak. We're coming at you. And the center's like, what the are you? No, don't. He's going to hit me. This is my job. And they get it. And then they have to run a second quarterback sneak a week or two later. And Cam does the same thing. And the center's like, seriously, dude, stop doing this. But by the 4th or 5th time that Cam just looks at a nose guard and says, we're going to run it up your ass, the center's like, hell yeah, of course we are. Like he has this way of rallying people around him with his joy, with his exuberance, with his confidence. Yeah. And so it's not a surprise that Wandale felt it too.
No, not a surprise at all. It's just and again, I also don't expect Wandale Robinson to come into the thing and be like, "Oh, I'm worried about the quarterback situation." Like, of course he's going to say positive things. But there is a difference when a guy is just like, "No, man, I trust that guy." And again, there's no reason to. Like that's what's interesting about it to me. And I'm not saying he isn't worth trusting. He probably is. But man, he just has a way of convincing you and buying in, and that's leadership, frankly. That's what that is. Yeah. What about the rest of the guys? I think so with Franklin Myers, and I think PK wrote a little bit about this. He didn't say a ton. A lot of admiration for Jeffrey Simmons and for Robert Saleh and the leadership of men. But I thought really the takeaway, and I think PK nailed this, which is just that they are going to come at you with one or two different lines of defensive players. They're going to have quick rotations, and they're going to play in a lot of different positions. So they want to confuse you pre-snap. They want to control which direction you're sliding coverage or you're sliding your protections. They want everything to be difficult to see disguised because they know they're coming with just 4, but they're going to come with a lot of different bodies in a lot of different positions.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty intuitive just based off of what Saleh's done in the past. I'm not surprised that this is the direction they're going, and good for them for going out and filling out the roster in a way that they'll be able to pull this off. I think that the main thing that was on my mind throughout that press conference, and that continues to be on my mind, is what's the value of having a really good Robert Saleh coached defense? And obviously the answer is you have a really good defense. But we saw what those really good defenses looked like in New York. We saw when they had the number 1 defense in the NFL by yards allowed per play and went 7-10. We saw when they were number 2 in the NFL in scoring defense and went 7-10. Those were 2 different years, by the way. So I talked to a lot of the guys. I asked a lot of the guys about the idea of, well, what do you need to bring with you and what needs to be different? And pretty much all of the Jets guys were like, no, we just need to do what we did. Like the defense needs to do what the defense did. Yeah. And they didn't want to, I think the diplomatic way they were saying it is everybody has to pull their own weight in football. It's the ultimate team sport. We just need to get to a point where everybody's pulling their own weight. And it's not
including the offense.
It's not Jermaine Johnson holding up a Zach Wilson sign, but like
right.
It felt a little bit like that.
And it's about Cam. It's about Cam.
And so as much as we talk about, oh, look at this cool stuff that the defense is going to do, we have proof that Robert Saleh coaching a top 5 defense doesn't get you into the postseason.
Yeah.
And I know that there are limitations here. I know that playing in the same division as prime Josh Allen made it harder to sneak into the postseason. I understand that playing in the AFC at the time that Saleh did made it harder to get those wild card spots because the league was loaded. All of that said, they have built a defense that I think will be pretty darn good. I am still not as convinced that that will translate to the kind of immediate overnight success if you are hoping for the hype of 10, 11 wins. If you're looking to get to that 7 and 10 mark, which would be a huge, huge upgrade over what we've seen the last couple of years, then yeah, I think they've gone about this in a really great way. But elevating the floor is a lot different than elevating the ceiling. And that's my takeaway from all of this is Cordell Flott kind of admitted it. He's like, yeah, I expect us to do things differently than these guys did in New York. Like, we didn't win. We didn't win enough. But you look at the rosters they're building. I think I counted 8 or 9 players signed directly off of Saleh's Jets teams or Dable's Giants teams. Yeah. And then you throw in guys like Jordan Elliott, guys like Mitchell Trubisky, who were also in these systems, but just not on the New York teams. You're putting together a lot of rosters. You're putting together a roster built around a lot of losing rosters. This isn't the same as when Mike Vrabel rebuilt winning Titans rosters in New England. This isn't even the same as like Malik Willis rejoining Packers people in Miami. Those were winning teams. And I'm not trying to be the mudhead here who's just like, oh, the only thing that matters is winning. Like, I understand that there's context to all of this, but like, we do have to reiterate that building a top 5 defense doesn't necessarily mean you're building a team that's going to compete, because we've seen this exact coach build a top 5 defense and still struggle to compete.
Everything you're saying, everything I'm feeling, everything they were saying is all building to my theory I'm going to float here near the end of the show. You're giving me even more confidence, Nick. I do love like reporter headline, Titans try to replicate below average football in Nashville. Is PK in the room with us? Says Z Dean. That's funny.
But what do you
appreciate that?
The comment above it, Mr. Ibanez, what do you mean the Titans weren't winning teams?
Titans went to the AFC Championship game and were the number 1 seed, and I believe had 6 straight winning seasons. I think.
5 straight winning seasons. Well, 5 under Vrabel, 2 the year.
1 under
I think
Munchak. Yeah,
but also, it was a situation where I think Vrabel's record was 54-45. That's a winning record.
Yeah. So again, I'm not gonna. You and Jared argued enough historical semantics on at the end of Thursday show. Oh, hey, PK, what's up, man? Good to see you, buddy. So I'm going to see here. Any team with no quarterback or running game will usually not make the playoffs. I think that's fair as well. Cordell Flott was very complimentary of Wan'Dale Robinson, to be expected. And so, look, any other broad takeaways from the conversations? Because I tend to agree with you that even without the draft yet, obviously a huge missing piece to what is happening, I do feel better about the defense in a big way after free agency. Sure. I know what the plan is. I understand what the plan is on defense. We know that there. And somebody asked about. Let me make sure. I wanted to touch on this because I thought it was a pretty good question. Caribbean says, "Does John Franklin Myers start at edge and then move inside?" Here's what I'm going to say when I hear them talk about sort of dictating where the protections are going to slide and we're going to mess with their protections. To me, is they want to build where they can put any combination of player to one side of the formation and have different skill sets in those combinations on any given snap, so that the center guard or guard tackle combination in each situation that might be the same, 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 8, that they're facing 2 different types of players doing 2 different types of things at any given moment. They want it to be. They want them to be questioning. It's not just going to be, well, Myles Garrett on the left and so on the right and Simmons in the middle. Like, it's not. It's if you put Johnson and Simmons to one side, that's different than putting Simmons and fill in the blank David Bailey to one side, right? Like, it's just going to. If you put John Franklin Myers and Simmons to one side, that's different than if you put Johnson and fill in the blank to one side. So it's just, I just think that they're going to rotate a bunch of different pieces in different places, and it's not that any one guy is one position or two positions. It's that they play that position, but then there's a different combination of like a piece that goes with them. There's a strategy there on how they're going to build the side, which I think is pretty standard and pretty smart football in general. So, all right. Anything else you take away from the secondary with those guys, with Flott and Taylor specifically?
I like what they're like. I like the idea of letting Alontae Taylor prove it on the outside, which it seems like that's at least part of the plan based off of the way Taylor was talking proudly about his ability to play inside and out. I've said on this show multiple times, I like Flott. I think he's ascendant. I think he is a player who has his best football ahead of him, even if cornerback is a volatile position. We'll see. I think that the secondary, I think I said this last week, I'll continue to say it. All three of the guys that they brought in at cornerback would have been the Titans' number one corner in December last year. So we have to grade on the curve of they've certainly gotten better. Is this an elite top 10 secondary? I don't think I'd go that far, but I like the moves they've made because they certainly got better back there.
Jason says, so you're saying don't expect success from coaches who lost a lot combined with the same players who also lost a lot. Cheeky, Jason. Cheeky.
I'm not saying don't expect it. I'm saying there needs to be something more than doing what you did in the past.
Coach Will says if they're B+ players, then I think it's a win. I think that's what we're talking about with the secondary. CRA says, I don't like the backup O-line moves. Why replace Udo with a poor player? Replace Blake Hance with another poor player. You can keep Hance and Udo. Again, this gets us sort of CRA's question about picking the pieces, even if they're depth pieces, does get us to this place in the timeline, in the organizational timeline, where it is clear that they are flushing the past in every conceivable way.
Yeah.
They are flushing the past. This is about resetting the organization, and you can use any number of words you want. Rebrand, they've done that. Rebuild, Chad Brinker told you that last year at the Combine. Whatever word you want to use, it is clear that they are putting they want a line of demarcation in time around this season, this off season, with the new uniforms, with the new logo, with the new front office, with the new coach, with new everything, going into a new stadium. This is about flushing the past and looking ahead at the new thing that they want to be. And so let's start with expectations and are you buying it all?
Yeah.
Let's start there, and then we can work our way into the different parts of the team. And I've got one sort of theory that I've landed on, I think. I obviously reserve the right to change that opinion about what's going to happen with the fourth pick, but it ties right into the end of our conversation around what they want to be moving forward. I guess that question is based on all of that, the uniforms and the changes and the head coach and the new quarterback and everything else, are you buying it? Do you buy that this team has completed its metamorphosis, or at least the beginning stages of the metamorphosis, to be this next thing, this next version of Titans football?
Yeah, when Braden and I were talking about this pre-show, I think the phrasing that I kept using was, what are the Titans trying to sell as who they are? Who are the Titans selling you that the Titans are? And I think we've seen that with the branding. I think we've seen that with the coaching moves. I think we've seen that with the roster moves. There is a very distinct, continuous thread being sold of, we are selling the nostalgia of what the best Titans teams ever were, or what the best uniforms looked like. We're going to use the colors you like, and we're going to build with a hard-nosed defensive coach who wants to build through the trenches first, and we're going to do all of the things that make you think about 2000 and 2008 and 2019. We're going to do all of those things again, but we're going to have a modern twist on it. But we're going to do it a little bit differently. But we actually have the franchise quarterback, we think. But we're going to build with a little more speed. It does feel like everything is boiling down to modern take on a timeless classic. Like everything they're doing. Robert Saleh feels like a modern take on a timeless classic. Modern twist on a timeless classic. Franklin Myers Jeffrey Simmons and John Franklin Myers playing together feels like that modern twist on a timeless classic. The thing the Titans are selling you over and over again, even if you go to the commercials and the promotions that they've put out about the new brand and the new uniform, it very much taps into, how did the Titans make you feel 25 years ago? They're going to make you feel that way again, but also in like a new way. Look at the new stadium. Look at the new uniforms. It's new, but we want to take you back there. And I'm not making fun of this. I know my tone just naturally sounds mocking because I'm a weird guy, but like this is what they are trying to sell you. And my curiosity in the comments and my curiosity from Braden is like, are you guys buying it? Like, is what they're selling coming across?
I like all questions with this team. It probably comes down to if Cam Ward is good at football or not. So what's the scene from Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights, where they're at the table and he's like, "I like my baby Jesus to wear a tuxedo T-shirt." Is that right? Is that what he says?
Yes. Yeah.
Where he's like, "It's all business in the front." It's kind of like a mullet, right? It's all business in the front, party in the back. That's how I feel like it. It's like, hey, I'm serious, but I'm also here to party. You know, that kind of thing. And I feel like that's the brand. Like up front in the trenches, as a general belief, we're here for business. I'm standing on business. We're going to win on the line of scrimmage. We're going to be a dominant physical football team that is going to play in an old school Vrabel-esque kind of early Jeff Fisher, early 2000s and sort of Robert Saleh kind of way. But you know what? We're going to twist the offense a little bit, and we're going to be a little lower Broadway on the back end. Like we're going to, because I was listening to you, Jared, and I said this on Monday's show with PK. What I was hearing, and neither of you kind of like said it, so I'm glad that you didn't say it, because I don't know why my brain went there. I thought lower Broadway when you were talking about the announcement party for the uniforms and like, hey, we're here to have fun. This is our new brand. We're going to be a little bit more modern, a little bit more fun, but we're going to make you feel like we're playing old school football at the same time, right? And to me, that's lower Broadway. That is, we are embracing. Literally, lower Broadway is jumping the river with the new stadium. That is literally what they're trying to do, is create a community social party area that's across the river with the stadium at its core, with these fun, new, fancy, modern, interesting, cool, hip, trendy uniforms. And we're gonna do it with this guy at quarterback that kind of does some of this new, fun, interesting stuff. And to me, that's what I see is when I and I agree with your point on this. I'm buying that as the vision.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I still have no clue if it works, because I look at these draft classes and I look at Mike Morganzi's first draft class and it looks pretty good relative to the last 4 or 5.
Yeah.
You look at Robinson's last 3 classes, 2020, 21, and 22, not a single player on the roster. 23, you have Peter Skoronski, and then if you're counting Will Levis and Tajay Spears, which you do have to, but those are backups. And then in 24, you've already traded Sweat and Brownlee. Sure, you have Williams and Harrell as, whatever their value is on the team, but really it's J.C. Latham and Cedric Gray, who didn't, one of those guys, both of those guys were largely irrelevant in their first seasons, much better in second seasons. Like these last 5 drafts have provided almost nothing. And then you look at Borgonzi's draft and you go, okay. And so a lot of it comes down to Saleh. It comes down to Cam Ward. But I think I buy into what they are selling ideologically and philosophically. I don't know if they can execute it.
I would also like to say that there is a lot of projecting required for this 25 draft class in a way that we were projecting very similarly about the 23 draft class at this time following that class. Because think about heading into Callahan's first year. Skoronski looked like a guy who was projecting to be a pretty good starter. He needed to take a step forward, but he was projecting to be pretty good. Levis, everybody was bought into as a franchise quarterback. Tajay, a lot of people were bought into as a future star at running back. Wiley didn't have as much hype coming in as Helm does right now, but people thought he could be a starter.
Conversation's not dissimilar. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sitting here invalidating the 25 class so much as I'm saying the narratives are actually at a pretty similar point because we're early in everybody's career. It's too early to say if Cam was a better value than trading the pick. It's too early to say if Femi is going to develop. It is too early to say if Kevin Winston is going to be a really good player. We've seen him play like 6 games. It's too early to say if Chim's going to develop into a number 1 or number 2 receiver. Like all of this stuff.
Every one of those players appears to be a contributor in this season, though.
Yes. So. And we thought this about previous draft classes.
No question.
And they spilled. So that's not me saying I think the 25 draft class was bad. I'm just saying let's pump the brakes on saying, oh, Borgonzi nailed the first draft, so much as there's still promise. After 1 year, nobody is Isaiah Wilson. After 1 year, nobody is Treylon Burks. We know that that's a low bar, but after 1 year, nobody is Jaquan Jackson. Like,
yeah. Even Jaquan Jackson had that second year in training camp where we were all chatting about him the whole time on the sidelines. Ultimately, what does this mean broadly for expectations? I want to get to that question before we move on. And look, this is the NFL, and so well, actually, how about this? Maybe the first question before we get into expectations is, with those draft classes, does this organization still have excuse is not the right word, but a reason to keep expectations lower? Because I think in the NFL, you can absolutely flip it pretty quickly. We've talked about it on this show a number of times that you can go, like, look at Liam Cohen last year for Jacksonville. Now they had a lot more pieces and a lot more high-end talent in place than I think the Titans do. I think they've elevated their floor in a big way. I do think you can expect, if you want to say this team could contend for a 500 record in that 8-9 win range, I don't think that's impossible to say from a ceiling. If you nail the draft and your young players develop, I don't think it's crazy to ask for 8 or 9 wins if everything is, you've made all the right decisions. I don't think they're a playoff team, but this division is as volatile as it can get. The Colts last season showed us in one season how volatile it can be, being the best offense in the NFL for 2 months, and then they lose their quarterback and they're completely meaningless. So the division itself, Houston doesn't know what it wants to be yet. I think it will continue to develop into a Super Bowl contender, but the defense is sick. The offense is very up and down, and Trevor Lawrence gets hurt all the time. So you just don't know what's going to happen. I think this team could absolutely be a second place team in the division. I don't think they're a wild card contender, but if things go right at their best, I think this is a B+ football team that can be a B+ team in the South and a B+ team in the AFC. And that could be 8 or 9 wins if it all goes right.
Yeah. And this goes back to something I wrote about that, man, if you guys watched the Monday free agent extravaganza, Stillman roasted me for bringing this story up. But I talked to like a culture expert, the guy who's the consultant that teams bring in, including the Titans, to be like, hey, let's evaluate your culture and figure out what's going.
Yeah, he didn't like the consultant turn.
No. One of the things that this guy told me that I thought was really fascinating was good culture is not going to turn a C- player into an A- player. But what good culture might do is turn a C- player into a B- player, or turn a C+ player into a B+ player. Mm-hmm. It's going to take the bottom of your roster and make it a little bit stronger. If everybody's pulling in the same direction, that good culture that the Titans are going to build is going to take a roster that's not good enough and make it a little better because the players are pulling in the same direction. So the thing that we can say, if we trust Salah's bona fides as a culture builder, if we trust Dable's bona fides as a culture builder, yeah, that's when we can start saying maybe this roster isn't strong enough altogether, but it's going to be stronger than the sum of its parts because they're building the whole the right way. And I know that sort of invalidates what I was just saying, but that's the trick of football, is that it constantly invalidates itself. It's really hard to predict this game. That's why Vegas makes a lot of money. But I do see a world where you're right, where the floor can be raised so high that the ceiling inadvertently gets raised.
Right.
But that's going to take a lot of buy-in from players who won't be able to practice together for another 2 months. We got a lot of time before we'll see how much this is working.
Let's get some comments here. Elite players raise the ceiling. Culture sets the floor. I think that's a smart way to look at it. I think it can flip quick. We have tons of continuity to coach to position coach to player. 10 picks and still a lot of money left. I tend to agree with that as well. Let's see here. Here's another one. Culture raises the floor, not the ceiling. Same comment there from Ray School. Ed Henry. I feel like if the team starts hot, it winds up surprising. A slow start will raise some doubts about how quickly Salah and Foster, and then here we go with the same mantra again. The Titans haven't given us anything to believe in as far as wins to go on over the last 2 years, and that ultimately that does tie directly into, like, I know that your excuse making as a roster builder is the timeline on excuses is very short in the NFL.
Yes.
But I don't think they are yet out of the Robinson Carthon weeds. When you have 3 drafts with literally not a single player on the roster 3 years later, and then 2 drafts with like maybe 3 starting pieces from Rand Carthon, If you want to count Jermaine Johnson because of the trade or a draft pick because of Brownlee, I'm fine with that. But basically, the people that were drafted are no longer a part of the team. That's 5 straight draft classes that are up to last year's draft class. That affects your roster in a really big way. I still think they have at least one more year where they can, quote unquote, use the excuse. Because if you're talking about a rebuild, what is the actual definition of rebuilding your home? You got to tear it all down and you got to start slow and build from the bottom up. And that means depth. That means line of scrimmage. That means a coach. That means a front office that you trust. And I think they've gotten a lot of those pieces in place for the first time. I feel more comfortable about this than I do Carthon, Brinker, Callahan with Will Levis. I feel way more comfortable with every single one of these pieces, which is Borgonzi and Sala and Ward versus Levis, Callahan, and Brinker and Carthon. And I just think, and Brinker, I think, is to the side now. I don't think he's a part of this football stuff. So I feel way more comfortable with the group and the power structure and the decision making than I did 3 years ago.
I agree with what you're saying. I think the one point where we diverge here is I kind of think I might have reached the statute of limitations on using the J-Rob excuse. This is not to defend the mistakes. There were obvious mistakes. The 2020 draft was 7 seasons ago.
I'm not counting that. Yeah.
Like, if you want to talk a little bit about the 2022 draft, we can, but still, that's a full rookie contract ago. The only player from any of those drafts who would have still been on a rookie contract would have been Treylon Burks if they used a 5th-year option on him. That's the only player from any of these drafts who would have still been here, and they're all 2 regimes ago. So if we're seeing,
I'm saying 1 season, Nick. I'm saying 1 more year.
I'm just saying if we're talking about a full rebuild where they were going to bring in all their own guys anyway, the value of still having Roger McCreary, the value of still having Chiga Okonkwo, we just saw them undo that. These are guys they could have kept around. The 22 draft, while it wasn't good, was not the same kind of unmitigated disaster as the 20 or 21 drafts.
But you're making my point for me, which is they're still undoing the wrongs of the past.
I'm saying that
still even this offseason.
I'm saying that if you're using the house metaphor of rebuild, there is nothing left to tear down. So if you say you have to fully tear down to rebuild back up, there is nothing left to tear down.
But that started but if that's what you're saying, which I'm not disagreeing with you on, if that's the case, then that was like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Like that means you can't, that means you still have to be building up, which means I think we all agree progress from 3 wins is important. Progress from 4 wins is important. Like it needs to be 7. It needs to be 7. That is you're building the you're not at drywall yet, but you're at framing. Okay. You're framing the house at this season. I'm just saying, I think if you're still cleaning house and removing parts over the last, that's Sweat, that's Brownlee, that's McCreary, that's Chig, that's all the things that have happened in the last, let's call it 8 months during the season and now in the offseason, firing the coach. You're still cleaning stuff. You're still in demolition mode there, which means it's still very much a part of the last 2 seasons are very much a part of it. I think there's 1 more year at least.
The problem is all of the things you're pointing to are Ran Callahan era reactions to the mistakes of the J-Rob era. So yeah, there's like an Old Testament such and such begat such and such begat such and such situation here. But if we're going through all of the mistakes that are being undone, they're undoing Snead, which was a reaction to Farley. They're undoing the Ridley contract,
right,
which was a reaction to AJ and Treylon. They're undoing the problems on the offensive line. They're undoing the Sweat deal. They're undoing all of these things, which were the things that were done to combat the mistakes.
It was bad money after bad money.
Yeah. But the point I'm making here is all of the things that they're tearing down right now, with the one exception of Chig not being re-signed, they're tearing down the reactions to those old mistakes. The idea of tearing down those old mistakes, that's all been torn down. And that's not to say, oh, it was good, actually. This is not me defending those so much as me saying, I think that 6-7 seasons, after the 2020 draft, 5-6 seasons after the 2021 draft, those are no longer the mistakes we're talking about that caused the Titans to be in the predicament they're in now. They're in the predicament they are in now because they failed when they tried to solve for those mistakes 3 years ago.
is it just insulting to your intelligence that I'm looking at it in a far more basic and broad sense, where I'm just saying it was just a big chunk of time of bad, poor decisions, and they're still digging their way out of that. And I think this year is for the first time this year is when they are climbing. Like what Steve Cavendish always tells me this. What is the first rule of holes? Stop digging when you're in a hole. And I feel like they stopped digging. Like I feel like that's what this offseason was, is they finally stopped digging and now they're climbing out. And so I think they need to show progress this year. It needs to be in the form of wins. Cam Ward has to be a better player, and it needs to be, again, I'm in the 7-10 range. Like if you told me right now before the draft, like, what do you think this team could be? I'm like 7-10 is probably what I would pick. That's about right. Maybe 6. But best case scenario, the draft goes right, everybody develops, maybe it could be an 8 or 9 win team. That to me is clearly finally climbing out of the hole. And I know it's much broader than what you're saying. I just think there's still some baked in patience with the current decision makers, still working through solving. Like they're still spackling the drywall here. They're not, like we're not adding finishes and wallpaper and paint yet. And not to continue to murder the metaphor.
And also, for those of you,
they're still
Braden
replacing
included,
the patching the holes is what we're doing.
For those of you, Braden included, who are forgetting, if that's Cavendish's first rule, which I love that, the first rule of hearing me talk about stuff, I don't necessarily care if people agree with me. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. I'm just saying what I think to be true. So this is not a, hey, everybody, come with me, agree with me. But it's been told to me, hey, express more opinions. Talk about how you feel more on this show. I didn't do that for a long time. And now I'm actually like, hey, this is how I think about football. And everyone's like, boo, stop.
I am not saying that, by the way. I enjoy healthy discussion. That is why I got into this field in the first place, is I love actively debating things. And imagine this, guys. It's okay to change your opinion when someone presents good quality information. I know that we're not allowed to do that, but I think that's the form of being an adult in this country, but whatever. So I guess we're probably pretty close to agreeing on this.
I think so.
I'm willing to give him at least one more season. I think there needs to be a third draft class, frankly. I think at this time next year, after next year's draft class, if they have 3 full draft classes and we've seen no progress, then I question the whole process. I question the whole thing. But I think we're going to see progress this year. I think. But they have to hit on the draft. They have to hit on the draft, which brings me, frankly, to my theory here, okay? Sinkers Beverages, everybody. Sign up for the in-crowd. Have the booze delivered directly to your house. Search Uber Eats. They'll send it to you. On Monday, we will have links for all of you to buy tickets. All the money goes to charity. Sinkers doesn't make a penny. 440 doesn't make a penny. I don't make a penny. MO Rose is not going to make a penny. The host that's going to host our cool event on Saturday night, not going to make a penny. Everyone donates their time, the booze, the food, the location, all the other things that are going to be a part of this event. Is all donated, all for the kids at Our Kids Center. Not a single penny. Over $10,000 over the last 4 years we've raised. I think it's closer to like $15,000, frankly, that we've raised for our kids. So going to have another great party ready for you guys at Thursday night. Watch party, more of the laid back, chill, just kind of watch and hang. We're going to have a contest for you with some really cool giveaways. The party's going to be at MO Rose in East Nashville on Gallatin right there in Inglewood. So Thursday night, be prepared. Saturday night, we're going to have a really, really interesting kind of live Q&A with some reporters after the draft, after talking to the Titans like we did last year, all off the record. So you got to be there in person, but it's going to be we're going to have a ton of cool stuff for you guys. So I'm really excited about it. Can't wait. Details coming on Monday. Be prepared. Schedule your plans. The 23rd on Thursday and the 25th on Saturday. Going to be a lot of fun. Okay. Here's the thing. The more and more I think about this organization, the decision makers, the brand question that you pose about, are we buying into what this team is trying to sell itself as? What are we as an organization? What are we as a football team? What are we as a team? And I like a lot of players at the top of the draft, and I'm probably reading too much into this whole conversation and then trying to attach it to draft strategy. But this is if this is a smart front office, and if this is a shrewd and savvy group of guys that knows what it's trying to accomplish it for, it cannot it cannot miss on this pick. It just can't. It can't. Reuben Bain, more risk than a couple of other players. Arvell Reese even has some questions in a couple of players. David Bailey might be the guy I like the most if they are taking an edge rusher at 4, because I think he's going to give them the thing they need the most, which is speed off the edge. I know he can do that, but I don't know if he can hold up against the run. I don't know how wide he needs to be to get to the quarterback. All three of those guys have questions. There is one player that solves the brand problem, that fits in with the brand strategy, and has almost no risk at all involved in being on the team. I am all the way fully on board with Jeremiah Love at 4.
Man, I thought you were talking about Vega Ione.
Not because I think it's the best pick, not because I would do it, not because of any of those reasons. This is not a I would do it. This is I think they're going to do it. I think this is a player that has almost no downside, that fits into the nostalgia of the identity of the team, that adds value and helps Cam Ward in so many ways. He is one of the most polished receivers as a running back that I have studied coming out of the draft in years. He runs routes like a receiver. They cannot miss on this pick. And if you are taking the best available player that makes your team guaranteed to be better quicker, and it fits in with this whole new, we're here to party and have fun, we're going to modernize the offense while sticking with our identity, Jeremiah Love is the player that does that at 4. And I did a bunch of these drafts, and I think the strategy that I'm now on is Jeremiah Love at 4, if you can't trade back to 7 or 8, and you're moving back at 35. You can move. I did one where I moved back to 46 and got Zion Young, Traydon Stukes, and Ted Hurst at 77. I did one where I traded back to 61 and got Keontae Scott, Malachi Lawrence, and Ted Hurst in the top 100. I did another one where I got Jeremiah Love and Malachi Lawrence and Stukes and Hurst in another one. You can add another top 100 pick if you move from 35 down to whatever, 50, 53, 51, 60. You can get 4 top 100 picks. You can get your corner, your edge rusher, your receiver, and you add Jeremiah Love to the offense. I don't know if I've fed into the algorithms or Nick, I don't know what it is about risk, and it's about strategy, and it's about how this front office sees things and makes decisions. Jeremiah Love strikes me as the pick right now.
I'll do a pro and I'll do a con. Just one each. Drafting Jeremiah Love based on what's available right now, based on what the Titans can do, drafting Jeremiah Love is the only move you can make that will genuinely take pressure off of Cam Ward. And if we think that this entire team identity is built around can Cam Ward be good, the only option left, and that's including drafting Carnell Tate, that's including trading back and getting Mekhi Lemon or Jordan Tyson, the only option on the board that genuinely would make life easier on Cam Ward, not make life better. There are a lot of second and third round receivers, Omar Cooper, Elijah Surratt, Chris Brazzell, people are talking about in the comments. There are things that will make his life better. But the only thing that will make his life easier is a one-of-one running back talent that takes pressure off the passing game fundamentally. So that is a really good reason to pick Jeremiah Love. Now, the con, the team that's picking first overall picked a running back in the top 10 last year. The team that's picking second overall just used a franchise tag on a really good running back. The team that's picking third overall is bringing back a starting running back and went into free agency and just signed a running back. The team that's picking sixth overall had a rookie running back who I believe went for 1,000 yards last year. The team that's picking eighth overall just signed a big money running back after using a big money running back as their primary ball carrier for the last 5-6 years. The team picking ninth overall just went out and spent a bunch of money on a running back. These are the teams that are picking in the top 10. The teams that have these really good running backs were the worst teams in football last year. So when we're talking about raising floor versus raising ceiling, I know that Kenneth Walker wasn't on the Chiefs last year. We can discard that point. That point doesn't matter as much. But Ashton Genty didn't make the Raiders better last year. Breece Hall did not make the Jets better last year. Quinshon Judkins did not make the Browns better last year. We have to remember that having a good running back is not necessarily a central way to win games. Now, does the con outweigh the pro? Does the pro outweigh the con? Please hear both of the points I'm making. It's a really nuanced situation. I'm not leaning one way or the other. It's really nuanced.
All right, well, how about this? Do you agree that Mike Borgonzi's general direction and default setting is not necessarily and frankly where this organization is at right now? Because somebody asked earlier, and I can't remember, maybe it was Caribbean Daniel asked about a trade. Like, hey, should we go with all this cap space? Should we trade to go get, I think it was Jonathan Grenard that was maybe who he asked about. And this organization is not in that place. They are not in a go trade for a piece place. They are totally about draft, develop, retain. And we just got done spending 30 minutes talking about how this organization has not done that in 7 seasons. And they need to draft, develop, retain. And if that is what they are doing, and it's less about Jeremiah Love and more about the other options. He is just so clearly a safer pick than the other options. And that, to me, I feel like that is how Mike Borgonzi is wired. I think he is wired in a way to just be smart. And it doesn't mean it's flashy. It doesn't mean it's risky. It just is smart. And I think if one of these edge rushers was clearly the guy, I wouldn't feel this way. But I could see them taking Bailey, and in 3 years, it doesn't work out. I could see them taking Bain, and in 3 years, it doesn't work out. And I could see them taking Arvell Reese and not knowing, like, I trust Saleh to put a great player, but do we know what he's going to be if he's a pass rusher? You can't take him if he's an off-ball linebacker. Like, I'm not saying these aren't great players. They could be. I'm pretty comfortable saying Jeremiah Love will be a very good NFL running back. I don't want to argue about whether or not he's better than McCaffrey, or I agree with your opinion. I think he's Jahmyr Gibbs. Is he better than Bijan Robinson? I think he would grade out much higher than Ezekiel Elliott or Josh Jacobs or a lot of these other running backs that were taken very highly. I think he would grade closer to the McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson.
I disagree on Zeke, but I hear your point.
Zeke is fine. He was a limited. I think he was more limited than people realize. But either way, it's not worth arguing. My point is he's about as good as those guys. Like, I don't know if he's a faster version of McCaffrey or a more diverse version of Bijan Rob. Like, I don't know. I think he's a really good NFL running back. And I think he makes your team better right away. Yeah. And I don't think there's almost a zero bust potential, in my opinion, barring injury, which is possible. But barring injury, there's no bust. And I feel like this front office looks at that risk reward proposition and says, oh, by the way, it leans into our identity as well. Let's go get a rock star and build our offense around him.
Yeah. No, again, I think there's a lot of really good reasoning to the pick. I can't silence the little voice in the back of my head that tells me Christian McCaffrey didn't make the Panthers better, that tells me Bijan Robinson didn't make the Falcons better, that tells me
Ashton you say hang on, you
the Raiders better 1 year.
You say that, and it's like, I know what you're doing when you're saying, like, oh, they had 7 wins when they drafted Bijan, and they've had 7 wins ever since. It's like, well, no, but like their offense was far more difficult to prepare for because of Bijan Robinson versus Bijan Robinson.
That's why I'm not saying it's an end all be all conversation. I'm just saying I can't silence the part of me that says, if you pick a guy 4th, you're already paying him top tier money at his position as a running back, versus if you draft quarterback, receiver, offensive tackle, defensive end, cornerback, you're getting a bargain there. And 2, I said A and 2, A and B. I can't silence the part of me that says these investments in top tier running backs have seldom led. Like, I've said this 100 times on the show. I'll say it again. In the last 20 years, there's only been one example of a team with a top 5 running back by rushing yards winning the Super Bowl. Saquon Barkley with the Eagles right? Last year is the only time in the last 20 seasons that a team with a top 5 running back has won the Super Bowl. Yeah. Before that, the most recent one was Corey Dillon in 2003.
Well, that's great, because I think Jeremiah Love is like the number 6th best running back, so he's not going to be top 5.
Top 6, you get to add in Marshawn Lynch one time. So two teams have won top 6.
You actually had the answer. God damn it. One of the most important questions in this entire theory that I have is Logan Jones, by the way, at number 101. Can't have holes on your offensive line, especially in the interior, and draft and expect a good running game. Very valid point. Very valid point. You still have not answered my question, though, which is, don't you believe that this is how Borgonzi is wired, though? And do you think I am portraying his general thought process and approach to this in an accurate way?
I could hear the argument. I don't necessarily know if there's picking a safety in the 3rd round last year wasn't picking on positional value. It was picking the best player where there was a steal. You could even argue picking Femi where they did as a non-traditional project player. They're going to pick on potential more than they're going to pick on just pure slot value. Yeah, I think that could be him. I don't necessarily know if this is that guy. I also, again, maybe I have a higher opinion of Bane than you do. I don't think there are as many questions about Bane as you're portraying it.
I think he's John Franklin Meyer, so I don't think they.
Again, I don't know if they need him, but I do think that you're pretty much guaranteeing yourself 4 years of a dude, and then after that, we'll see if he has to bump inside.
Maybe what I'm getting at is that, make GMing easy again is maybe what I'm getting at here.
Sure.
And because I thought John Robinson did things that were logical, and I think good general. I don't think sometimes we think football is this crazy rocket science, and sometimes it's just not. Sometimes it's so obvious and simple and logical. And frankly, what they did in the offseason, to me, is very logical and predictable. You basically picked the 4 players they were going to sign. It was very predictable and logical. I like it when an organization, to me, the Rand years didn't make sense. Some of the things they did were just, they weren't tied together by a unifying strategy. And I thought John Robinson, while he screwed up those picks, Caleb Farley, Isaiah Wilson, etc., Traylon Burks, he was predictable. And I felt like I was hey, here's the hole in the roster. They're going to go, this is a good player of value at that position. They're going to draft this guy. I think I nailed Harold Landry and A.J. Brown and Corey Davis and Adoree Jackson. Some of those were great picks. Some of those were terrible picks. But I think predictable is a good trait. Because if everyone in the ecosystem looks at the Titans and says, this is the best player, and they're like, I think that's a good trait. I think that's a good thing.
If you'll allow me to, one small interjection here, and I know there is a lot of backstory that a lot of us are biting our tongues on when it comes to the number 11 pick in the 2023 NFL draft. There's a lot of backstory that a lot of us have that a lot of us are biting our tongues on. But if we talk about the public-facing thing that Rand Carthon said at his pre-draft press conference, that was the press conference where he talked about, my first pick as a general manager needs to be a blue player. What I want is a guy who I can guarantee will be a 10-year starter, because he's going to be a guy who is always reliable, is always accountable, is always on the field. And he went out and picked a guard with the number 11 pick because he was the best player on the board. And again, there's a lot of backstory that might make the story a little bit different. But the thing you're arguing for is the blue player philosophy.
Talking about a wide receiver? Keep going.
The thing you're saying about, this feels very Borgonzi-esque, is blue player theory. Is go use your first round pick on a guy who is the least likely to fail. And so, as much as we say, that's Borgonzi, that is genuinely word for word Rand's philosophy.
But he never did it, though, other than that pick.
Yeah, which I'm not saying
he chased after that. He traded up to get Levis. He did
I'm not saying
in the 3rd round. He chased
I'm saying it's the thing he said. I'm not saying it's the thing he did. It's very interesting that we only covered it for a week because it fell out of the news cycle. But that blue player thing was a big deal. We spent a lot of time talking about, that's what they're going to do. And it is funny to me that we are now cycling all the way back to Titans just need to pick the best player on the board because that's how blue players work. It makes me happy.
Yeah. Well, and it's less about like it is. I think in the context of the draft, I think the blue player theory is what we're talking about. But I think it's also, and this does it. Here's the thing: early years of Robinson were my first years on the beat. Like my first years covering the Titans were 2016. First year covering the Preds. First year covering Nashville sports. First time I ever was local. I started at 102.5 in like September of 2016. So he systematically, logically, and predictably took a terrible roster and made it better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what happened. And I'm not blaming anybody or blaming things, or like Rand stepped into a different situation with a different roster and a different timeline with a different situation at coach, etc. But late John Robinson was the opposite. It felt more like what Rand did, which is chase a bunch of things and try to get the flashy object. And after the guard thing and maybe after Latham, fine. But Robinson's early decisions felt like what Borgonzi is doing now, and I think that is a positive thing, because if you are looking at your defensive line and you're looking at your secondary room and there's players available and you can elevate the floor and you go do it at reasonable price points with outs in 2 years, that is very logical and very sound to me. And the more and more I think about this pick at 4, I really like David Bailey. You really like Ruben Bain. Other people love Arvell Reese. I get it. They all could be very good. They all could be busts. It is about minimizing risk and making your team. How do you guarantee that you make your team better? And I really do think Sonny Styles would do that. It's almost insane to take him at 4. But if Jeremiah Love is a top 8 running back in the NFL, let's just use that. Like he's an upper third running back in the NFL. It is probably worth it to put him in the backfield with your second-year quarterback. And they minimize risk and guarantee higher floor, which is what they've done for 2 straight seasons now with Borgonzi's decision-making. And that's why I feel like this is what they're going to do. Yeah. That's where I'm at.
I reference this joke entirely too often, but all local sports media coverage to me sometimes comes in danger of sounding like, do you know the old famous joke on Twitter of it's like guy who has only ever seen one movie and it's the Boss Baby seeing his second movie, and then he says, quote, man, I don't know, this is giving off real Boss Baby vibes. Like every time every time we talk about, oh, how do the Titans get better, we're people who spend our entire lives watching and talking to people about and consuming the Titans. So the frame of reference we compare it to is when the Titans were good. And so like, oh man, this is giving off real 2016 John Robinson vibes. Yeah, that's the last time anything was good. Like, it's really hard for us to compare what we're seeing now to the 2019 Buffalo Bills. It's really hard for us to compare it to the 2017 San Francisco 49ers because we weren't there.
Yeah.
So I'm hesitating to like say, oh, this is similar to Robinson. Oh, this is similar to Ran. They are convenient comparison points. And we need to acknowledge our biases there of like, we're comparing them to the things we're most familiar with. It's probably more complicated than that. But yeah, it is giving off a little bit of Boss Baby vibes, the way that Borgonzi's going about this.
Okay. All right. All right. So there you go. Lots of you guys in the comments. I think upside is with a good draft is 8-9 wins. I think they have to have 2 or 3 or 4 more wins this season to have proof of concept. And I still think they get a whole nother offseason to complain about in private the past decisions of the past front offices.
Before we go,
they're allowed to do that.
Before we go, did you see my tweet yesterday about LSU? I've got a challenge for you if you didn't.
Oh my God, Zach Lyons, buddy.
Okay, so you did see it.
Read the tweet, buddy. Read it. Come on.
I was going to see how many of the 11 you thought you'd be able to name.
Oh, I don't have the list in front of me.
Okay.
I can get.
For those of you,
not Jalen Armour Davis. It's the other guy with 3 names.
So for those of you who don't know what I'm referencing, I have noticed that 11 different players from the 2019 LSU Tigers football team have signed contracts with the Tennessee Titans at one point or another in their professional careers, which is a real blow to the idea that the best college team could compete with the worst professional team, because the worst professional team of the last couple of years has really heavily leaned on players from the best college team. But either way,
they didn't get any of the good ones.
They didn't get any of the good ones. The 11 players, Braden, do you want to guess, or should I just rattle them off?
Racy McMath.
Yep.
Christian Fulton.
Yep.
You had Cushenberry.
Yep.
Of course, was on the team. Flott. They added Flott, of course.
Cordell Flott.
Charles.
Sadiq Charles.
Sadiq Charles. Okay, I got that one. How many I got? 5?
You've got 5.
That might be all I got. They just signed. The reason you posted is they just signed a guy.
Austin Deculus. I'll give you that one. That's 6.
There we go. That's the offensive line. And then I mentioned the guy with 3 names. Do I get that one too?
Tyrion Davis Price. I'll give you that at 7.
That's 7. That's as far as I can go.
The ones you're missing: Cade York, the kicker, was on the Titans practice squad for like 3 weeks. Torrey Carter as a fullback was on the Titans for about a year and a half there.
The guy, the practice squad kicker and a fullback?
No, there's more. TK McClendon was on the Titans for a couple of years. He was on that LSU team. Who else am I missing here? There's 1 or 2 more. Let me pull up the list.
It was a very good college football team. And
Tyler Shelvin.
Okay.
Tyler Shelvin was on that team.
I guess Fulton was the best one that the Titans had of that 2019 team, right?
Probably.
Fulton was second-round pick, played for a couple of years. He was a legitimately good player for them on that team. Yeah. That was just a filthy football team.
It was a really good team. Again, there were 11 dudes who were not super great pros off of that team, and there were a lot more who were good pros.
What was the defensive line on that LSU team? It was McClendon.
McClendon was a freshman. He barely played.
Okay.
It was Tyler Shelvin was the nose tackle. I think Rashard Lawrence and Braden Fajoko were still there. And then Caleb on Chason was one of the edge rushers.
Was Daniil Hunter on that team?
What am I doing? I have the page still pulled up on my computer. Let's see. Their starting defense, according to Wikipedia. Defensive line, Neil Farrell, Tyler Shelvin, Rashard Lawrence, Braden Fajoko.
Okay.
Linebackers, Patrick Queen, Jacob Phillips, Damone Clark, Caleb on Chason.
Chason and Queen, man. Damn.
Safeties, Grant Delpit, Jacoby Stevens.
Yeah.
And the cornerback room was just, Christian Fulton, Cordell Flott, Derek Stingley Jr.
That's right. Stingley was the rock. Stingley and Queen are the 2, and Chason are like the one from each level. Let's not even get started on the receiving core. So
Titans have employed 3/5 of that starting offensive line, though. Between Deculus, Sadiq Charles, and Lloyd Cushenberry, Titans have gone to that well more than a couple of times.
Cush was very good. He was a very good player. Okay. All right. What do you got coming up at Tennessean.com? Everybody pay for good journalism.
Working on a couple of big down-the-line stories that'll come in closer to draft season that I will talk to you guys more about when we get closer there. I'm going to Vanderbilt Pro Day tomorrow. I don't know if I'll see you there, but I'll keep an eye out just because it's local and fun, and there are actual draft prospects.
Yeah, Eli Stowers. Friday is my non-sports day of work. All right.
It's interesting that Vanderbilt scheduled its pro day at a period when both of its teams are in the NCAA basketball tournament and they have a big baseball series. And it's just,
are they actually in the way? Hang on, they're not playing games during the pro day, are they?
Friday at noon is pro day. So when does Vandy play?
I don't know, but seriously? That's bad. That's poor.
I haven't looked at the bracket. I am not a college basketball guy. That is why I am on a football show and not a basketball show, in case the listeners wanted to know.
All right, Vandy Pro Day coverage and more from Nick. Of course, at Nick Suss on Twitter. You can get to him at Tennessean.com. Pay for good journalism. Sinkers Beverages 5th Annual Charity Draft Party Event Social going to be available. Tickets will be available on Monday, so tune in on Monday when Paul and I get started on a football show. Otherwise, have a great weekend, everybody. Please drink responsibly, Uber Eats, and have Sinkers deliver that booze directly to your house. For Nick, I am Braden. Thanks for listening. Peace and love. We'll talk to you next time.